I am interested in taking care of patients in this institution, and when I'm prevented from taking care of patients the way they should be taken care of by a law that exists, I just happen to believe something ought to be done about it.
Well, I think it's very evident that the law is unenforceable. I think if you had a policeman under every bed in the state of Connecticut, they still could not prove anything.
On June 7, 1965, Estelle Griswold and Celie Buxton broke health barriers by fighting a Connecticut law that made birth control and contraceptives illegal. When the hearing began, all 9 of the justices remained in the mindset that the law was appropriate. They acknowledged the argument that the law was unconstitutional, and 7 out of the 9 switched over to Griswold and Buxton's side very quickly. Further, this case not only led to laws about safe abortion, but laws making same-sex marriage legal and making it easier for poor families to have access to contraception.
Last November 1st, the New Haven Planned Parenthood Center opened the doors of a birth control clinic to test again the latest Supreme Court interpretation. But local officials did not consider the law quite dead. On November 10th, after 10 days of operation, the clinic was raided and closed by police.
The government weren't the only ones who were against contraception.
Well, I'm 100% against birth control because it's immoral. It's the same as prostitution or abortion or in any other in those immoral things.
Earlier, in 1879, the Comstock Act, created by Anthony Comstock, made birth control and contraceptives illegal. It was a law for 82 years, and many had attempted to change this. All cases had never made it to the Supreme Court. During this time, it was very hard for couples to control the size of their families. There were also many people dying. 32 out of 100,000 women died while giving birth. Planned Parenthood was doing everything they could to help women. They had a transport service where they would shuttle women to Rhode Island and New York clinics where birth control was legal.
But we are continuing our program of education and referral. Now, many women call in for information as to where they can get help. And for the past 4 years, we have been referring women to the 3 out-of-state centers, which just border the boundary of Connecticut.
Margaret Sanger also opened a contraceptive clinic on October 16, 1916 in Brownsville, New York, 49 years earlier. She was arrested and jailed for a 30-day period. She also later recruited Gregory Pincus, who developed a contraceptive in the form of a pill. This was not the first time Estelle Griswold had violated the law. She had been advising women where they could go to receive contraception and advice about contraception for years. Griswold also worked with Planned Parenthood to give new parents information about birth control. Connecticut was not the only state that banned contraception. It was one of the 30 who thought it increased the prostitution rate and believed making birth control illegal would stop this issue. Then, Celie Buxton and Estelle Griswold came up with a groundbreaking idea that would change everything. They decided to open a contraceptive clinic illegally at 79 Trumbull Street in New Haven, Connecticut. Birth control was illegal, but not for some that could afford it, and they wanted to make it equal.
Well, aren't people who want birth control information getting it in this state?
If a woman can afford to go to a private doctor as a private patient and pay a fee, she can get contraceptive advice in Connecticut. But if she hasn't the money to go to a private doctor, if she's a patient in our clinic here, for instance, she can't get contraceptive advice here because we're not allowed to have a family planning clinic, and they're the ones that really need contraceptive advice from a socioeconomic as well as from a health point of view. And they're being discriminated against because of their economic status.
Well, since, as you said, that many people who can afford to go to a private physician can get contraceptive information, how many people would you say there are in the state of Connecticut who are breaking the law every day?
Connecticut has one of the lowest birth rates of any state in the United States. Now, you can't tell me that that's because they're carrying out either Puritan or Catholic ideals.
The clinic was opened on November 1st, 1961. The police found out about it and they raided and closed it 10 days later. Griswold and Buxton were taken to court 4 years later on June 7, 1965.
The effort to change morality laws by breaking them is still going on. The latest case in the state of Connecticut, where an old Comstock law making it a crime to practice contraception is still on the books. In June 1961, the United States Supreme Court refused to rule on the constitutionality of the Connecticut birth control law, declaring the statute to be a dead letter.
While court was in session, different sides argued against each other, but not for long. Griswold and Buxton argued that this law was unconstitutional and it broke the right to marital privacy. There were 9 justices, 7 of which joined Griswold and Buxton's argument, but the 2 remaining justices stuck with the argument that the law was constitutional. Eventually, Griswold and Buxton won their argument. At the end of this case, the court determined that this law was unconstitutional and broke the right to privacy covered in the 4th and 9th Amendments. Griswold v. Connecticut led to many other important cases, like Eisenstadt v. Baird. This case made it legal for unmarried women to buy and possess contraception, which made a vast difference. This case didn't just get rid of the law in Connecticut, it made birth control legal in all 50 states. Only 12% of the women interviewed here said that abstinence is the best way to not get pregnant. The other 88 wanted the pill and other methods of contraception. This shows that the law made a big impact on the U.S. and was the best decision. After this happened, some states did still create laws that made birth control and abortion illegal in some way, but it also made teen pregnancy numbers drop and death rates go down. It ignited 2 cases, one in 1971 and one in 1975, which were brought to the state courts where people and doctors fought laws making birth control illegal unless it was to save a woman's life. It also sparked a path for safe abortion cases like Roe v. Wade. This was where Mrs. Roe, or Norma McCorvey, Roe was a fictional name used in records to keep her identity secret, filed a lawsuit challenging a Texas law that only made abortion legal if it was to save a woman's life. It also broke the right to privacy because abortion is a constitutional right. Furthermore, this case did not only help women, but inspired other people to help women and help fight for their rights.
Yale law professor Fowler Harper, who has argued the issue before the U.S. Supreme Court in the past, will go before the court again as legal counsel for the defense.
This case has helped a lot of women today. In 2018, there are over 4,000 contraceptive clinics in the U.S. This case blazed a trail for many cases to come that helped with safe abortion and abortion for minors. Birth control has done many positive things for women. Additionally, it has helped them complete more years of college and get the jobs they wanted. The rate of women completing 4 years of school from 1960 to 2001 has multiplied by 6. Women have become teachers, businesswomen, doctors because this pill helped. And they could still achieve all of that and have a happy, healthy family. Now, this case has definitely made an impact on many people, but not in the minds of some. Until 2018, almost all states allowed birth control, but not all. State by state, they were banning it. And as of last year, 2019, 16 out of 50 states had banned birth control for good. And instead of just forgetting about, the Supreme Court looked back 40 years later and turned their attention to whether the Constitution implicitly contains fundamental privacy guarantees that are not dependent on the Due Process Clause or not. Now that people look back at it, Estelle Griswold, Seeley Buxton, and Planned Parenthood gave a lot of help. They helped a lot of people by fighting this law.
Connecticut. And we have been subsidizing these centers financially for quite some time to help, particularly on these indigent cases.